What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some very important levels to be watching for on Tesla going into tomorrow, what the news is saying about Tesla and Elon Musk, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break down all this information, before I talk about the big earnings that just came out, what all of this means for Tesla, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Mumu link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Mumu, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. You deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, now looking at Tesla, I do want to say something that's not so great for many investors out there, and that's the fact that Tesla's looking very weak. Looking at Tesla for the last couple of weeks, we actually saw Tesla reject off this yellow trend line many, many times. And this time, instead of trying to get some kind of breakout, instead of trying to hold up very close to this range, we actually saw Tesla continue to sell off, and we lost some critical support right over here. We actually failed to hold 182.5, and because we failed to do that, our last point of hope was around 180, which Tesla ended up breaking past. We broke past this amidst all the bad news that was coming out, but some buyers did defend Tesla off 175. That's the same level we called out in my intraday video. And then after that, I mean, Tesla just was trading sideways from there. It just barely closed above 181. And now it's actually barely at 180 right now during the after hours. So it's still looking very weak. And that's not the best of signs. So the question is, how will Tesla move going into tomorrow? What are some important levels to watch for, and how on earth could Tesla change the trend if it wants to turn bullish? I'll be answering all these questions over the next couple of minutes, but I first want to talk about some earnings and some things to be watching for in the market going into tomorrow. So, firstly, I just want to mention that we have some earnings coming out. Tomorrow, we have Spotify, Hertz, not to mention Snapchat and Ford after the market closes. For Wednesday, we have Alibaba in the morning, Uber, and just a couple of others. And after the market closes, we have PayPal and Disney. So keep these in the back of your mind if you're interested. For today, we just had Palantir's earnings come out after the market closed. Looking at Palantir, things are not looking too bad. Palantir is up 19% on revenue beat, which is not bad whatsoever. But on top of this, when you look at their earnings specifically, the reason why it's up so big is because the full year guidance for 2024 was in line with the expectations of Wall Street. They met on EPS and beat on revenue. Good earnings, good guidance. That's exactly what Wall Street wants. And we saw a surge of buyers step in and push this thing up almost 20% in just the after hours. So pretty crazy stuff. Now, what's going on with the economic calendar for tomorrow? As a reminder, guys, there's not really much coming out tomorrow. At 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 30 minutes after the market opens, we have the Economic Optimism Index report coming out. This is important for consumer sentiment and how on earth people are feeling about the economy right now. When we watch to see how optimistic things are looking, so far things have been looking pretty good, especially because of what some of the things Jerome Powell has said about how there's a lot of progress being made. But don't forget that Powell also mentioned that the Fed is just unsure about when specifically they're going to be cutting rates. We know they will be cutting rates. We're just waiting until when the time is going to be. Is it going to be March? Is it going to be May? We don't truly know yet. We have to wait and see what the data suggests. Powell did say a March cut is unlikely, though, at least thus far. So we're going to be very patient and see. Besides that, I mean, we'll be watching the economic optimism reports tomorrow at 10 a.m., 30 minutes after the market opens. Then at 11 a.m., we have the total household debt for Q4 coming out. Could cause some volatility, but it shouldn't be that crazy. I think 10 a.m. is when things are going to be a lot more serious. And then besides those two pieces of data at 10 and 11 a.m., everything else is very minor. We just have a bunch of Fed speakers throughout the day. We have Mester from the Fed giving a speech, Kashkari giving a speech at 1 p.m., then Collins from the Fed giving a speech at 2 p.m., a bunch of Fed speakers after that, which could move the market to some extent. We'll just have to see what they say, and that's going to be very important. Just know that Kashkari tends to help the markets out. He tends to be more dovish. Collins tends to be a little in the middle, and I'm not sure about Mester, but they excuse me, they tend to be a little bit more in the middle. So this shouldn't really cause anything too crazy. I'm not really expecting much from the speakers, but besides that, just watch for the data in the morning. Now, when it comes to more data affecting the markets, I just want to mention that the fear and greed index is currently very close to extreme greed. And this is telling us that there's still a lot of buyers stepping in. SPY came down today. This came down amidst the data that came out in the morning. I actually went over all this data, in the morning, so I'm not going to go over it right now. But off the data, the market dropped. Off Jerome Powell's words, that also contributed to some extent. But then the market got bought back up again, and we closed quite decently. So right now the buyers still have control. They're still buying up the markets. The sellers are not mainly in control just yet. Market momentum is still at extreme greed. We're still seeing the market at these extremes. Then the put and call positionings at extreme greed right now. We're still seeing lots and lots of greed taking over the markets. People are still, once again, shifting their positions and closing a lot of puts. The VIX is still also kind of like neutral because this thing was at a higher place when Powell was giving his speech. It's still coming down. It's still above the 50 daily moving average, but we're going to be watching to see if that changes. Now, what about for Tesla? What's going on with Tesla? What is the news saying about this? Let's actually talk about something very important. So, unfortunately, Tesla has sank to a 9-month low. It was the worst S&P 500 performer, and a lot of this has to do with some negative pieces of news, some potential price cuts, not to mention a lot of news involving Elon Musk. If you guys didn't see my previous videos, the news is basically saying that substances are tied to Elon Musk, which is not good for any CEO, and also to some Tesla directors, which is not good at all, right? These things right here, the things I'm highlighting, nothing you want to hear about, nothing you want to see, nothing that any company should be hearing about when it comes to their CEO. And it is what it is. We just have to accept this. Hopefully, these controversies are not true. I really hope so. But even if they are, I don't think it's the end of the world for Tesla, but it could be a little bit negative, at least for the short term. Now, on top of this, the Tesla Model 2, 4 things to know about the next gen EV. This is something very, very interesting that's coming out thus far. We're going to be watching to see what this could look like, if this could bring in more sales, at least in the future. I think that for the next gen EV, if this does end up coming out, right, uh, maybe relatively soon, within a year from now or a year and a half, uh, Tesla did mention that this is going to likely come out in mid 2025, if not maybe the later part of it. But you have to remember that Tesla tends to price these things in about 18 months in advance. So Tesla could start to price this in towards the summertime. So there's a very good chance the share price could improve its price action when we get to June/July. For now, however, with all the bad news coming out involving Tesla and the EV markets, things are a little bit bad for Tesla. That's going to be my honest assessment. But later on, just give it a few months and things can still improve once we get closer to summer because of developments like that, which Tesla will price in soon. There's also an analyst who's warning a lot about Tesla. They basically were correct about their price target of Tesla dropping to these lows. And now they made a very, very big adjustment. It's actually at the bottom of this article I saw, so I'm going to go all the way back. Camish is their name. Camish has come out and they're saying that looking at price volume, looking at technicals and such, they basically forecast that Tesla would reach 193 a share, and they were correct about this. And then on top of this, they also mentioned that Tesla could fall all the way down to 150 a share. That's their next price targets. They're a little bit worried about this looking at different technicals. So this is important. An analyst is saying Tesla might fall to 150 a share. That's a little bit negative for the share price as well. Now, looking at inventory levels, this is what they're looking like thus far. We saw a big surge in the Model Y production, especially in Berlin, which is part of why these numbers are looking this hot. But everything else is still kind of like stationary down here. So demand is still, in my opinion, not the worst for Teslas. I'm hoping demand improves for the Model Y, but I think this has more to do with production, less to do with demand. And we'll see what happens as time goes on. But don't forget that Tesla also told us that production could see a slowdown as they prepare for the next gen model. Next gen model is going to be bullish for the long term. Short term, not always the most bullish thing. So you just want to be a little bit careful when all of this comes out. Besides that, just a couple more things I want to go over. I just want to mention that as far as Tesla goes, Wedbush is still saying Tesla should outperform the market. The price price ratio is down because Tesla's looking very weak compared to the market. Okay. Tuesdays tend to be green about 52% of the time, historically, and 11 a.m. and then also 2 p.m. is when we tend to see more volatility. It's the same stuff. February is historically a very weak month for Tesla, so be careful. It's green only about 36% of the time. And then besides that, everything else is essentially the same. The volume on Tesla was only 134 million. It's a little bit more than average. So we're getting higher than average selling, which is a sign of weakness. And our short volume is starting to uptrend just a little bit, which tends to be a little bit negative. So we're seeing a little bit more shorting on Tesla. We're starting to see some negative data, and Tesla is continuing to reject. Make sure you watch resistance at 182.5, also at 184, and then you watch support at 180. If you lose that, 178 is coming next. 175. If you lose that, then there's 172 and 170 coming. So, what do I think Tesla's going to do? In my opinion, so far it's been rejecting off this trend line. It also rejected very cleanly off its 4-hour 20 EMA. So it's still looking like it's on a strong downtrend, and the technicals are looking very weak compared to the market. So I'm a big bull on Tesla, guys, for the long term, but for the short term, I have to be honest with you, it's looking a little bit weak, especially because we're just barely holding 180 in the after hours right now. So when we open, one thing I just want to note is that for the last 3 days, it's been the same pattern. Tesla has basically dumped when we opened. So it dumped and then pumped at the end of the day. That was on Thursday. On Friday, it gapped down, it dumped a lot, and then it ended up pumping at the end of the day. And then today's Monday, it dumped and then pumped and came back down. So there's a very good chance it might follow the trend if it continues to sell off, because in the after hours right now, Tesla is selling off quite a bit more. We might see Tesla sell off a little bit tomorrow morning. So I want you guys to be very careful. This also depends on the news. We might see this thing come back down towards 178, maybe even 175 again, could backtest these levels, bounce, and it might just consolidate in this range for some time and close a little bit flat. I think that's the most likely possibility. In order for us to turn bullish, you need to see Tesla try to break above this yellow trend line and try to get back above 186 plus and close above that. That's how you turn bullish. As long as we fail to do so, we're going to likely be stuck in this range right here at these lower levels. Also, 180 is another very important level. If we close below that, that's going to be a bigger sign of weakness. We managed to close above it, so we're still trying to hold for now. That means that buyers are still defending it. I think tomorrow there's a good chance it's going to sell off in the morning and then get a nice rebound and close a little flat. And we'll have to see if we can close above 180 or not. However, nonetheless, the share price is on a big downtrend. It's still looking bearish, not looking that strong compared to the markets. And what also worries me about Tesla is the fact that Tesla's already selling off while SPY, the QQQ, these things are near all-time highs. What's going to happen if the market starts downtrending? That might be even more negative for Tesla. So please be warned about that. That's my warning for everyone. For SPY, this is very, very much just consolidating right now, getting very, very tight. You guys can see it's been getting tight in this range. We're going to be watching to see if SPY turns bearish. For this thing to turn bearish, you want to see SPY basically lose around the 20 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. If we lose 491, our next target is going to be 488. A bigger drop is going to be coming. So some could argue that this kind of looks like a slanted head and shoulders. Uh, this is like a left shoulder here, a right shoulder. It could be that, but just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see if we get a break. So we haven't officially broken our key support. If we break this trend line right here, we're going to turn a lot more bearish. Hasn't done that quite yet, and the trend is still holding up. Now, could we consolidate and break out? That's always a possibility. Uh, we're going to be watching resistance at 492.5, excuse me. Then we have 493.5 where this resistance is. Then the highs we made closer to 495. Those are going to be resistance levels. For support, make sure you watch 491. We're going to be watching this blue trend line right here and then 491 below that. If we lose that, 488 could be our next target if we get a big break. So I'm a little bit double-minded because there is a possible head and shoulders if you want to go that route, but at the same time, we're in this like pennant and we might just consolidate as time goes on. So it looks to me like it's the most likely possibility is we kind of consolidate and we could try to bounce if we manage to hold above our key support. As long as we keep closing above 491, we're fine. But if we get a close below 491, we're going to turn bearish. So I think that SPY might just consolidate for now, get very, very tight. We could even try to bounce, but just to be safe, watch and see if we close above 491 or not. If we don't, it's not going to be good. If we do, we'll be fine. But look for sideways price action, might kind of like pop when we open, trade sideways in this range, and we'll just have to see what it does from there. Now, unlike SPY, the QQQ is showing some more strength thanks to Nvda and other tickers out there, but I'd still be very careful because we're losing some momentum. So we're getting tighter. We have this support to be watching for. We could come down to test the support around the 427.5 area, bounce back up and just trade sideways in this range. It does have this tight resistance above 429. We also have some nice support around 427 and 425. I think that the QQQ might come down, push one more time, consolidate up here, and we might just see a sideways day again. The reason why it might kind of like drop and then pump is because of Nvda and also because of Apple, because Nvda looks bullish. I think it's going to be breaking 700 very, very soon, probably hitting 702 and then 707. Nvda is still looking bullish. There's no sign of it breaking down. Watch 700. We're approaching that. I think we're going to test that for tomorrow. For Apple stock, in my opinion, has a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure, which is still playing out so far. But we're going to be watching to see a little retracement at the support area at 187. Could even test 186.5 and then rebound and start pushing up towards 190. Once I zoom in, you guys can see these levels much more clearly. So these are the levels to basically be watching for. They're very tight, but you can see, watch 186.5 as critical support. If we bounce off that, watch 188 as resistance, 189 and then 190.5. We might drop and then bounce on Apple. It still could push higher as the trend is still looking bullish. We're still making higher highs and higher lows. So this could help the market pump even more. So with that being said, guys, I went over the main five. I'm just going to quickly go over a couple more before I end the video. So once again, for Tesla, let me just clarify that SPY is still kind of indecisive. It's closing above 491, so it's fine. The QQQ has more strength thanks to Nvda and Apple. They're still respecting uptrends, still holding up. However, Tesla, of all things, is looking a little bit weaker. It's looking weaker, unfortunately. We're getting a lot of bad news, guys, so please be very careful with this. We might drop a little bit, especially when we open. It's still looking kind of weak. Then look for a pump by the end of the day tomorrow and see if we could get a flat close. But overall, it's downtrending. It's still looking weak. There's no other way for me to put it. Tesla is not in the best of places. And this is just, in my opinion, just another really good buying opportunity for the long term. So as a big Tesla bull for the long term, I'm just like very excited about these dips. But I just want to make it clear, please be prepared for more potential downside in the future. I want to be honest with you. For Rivian, unfortunately, we got some bad news looking at their sales. This ended up causing a sell-off despite the bullish technicals. So this, in turn, is looking a little bit weaker. Going to be looking for a backtest of 14.75, then eventually 14.5. So be very careful. For SoFi is also looking a little bit weak right now. Got this rejection very close to our 20 EMA. Going to be looking for a pop towards 7.7 and maybe a rejection. And unfortunately, it's still kind of consolidating, trading sideways. We might see a little downside from there. For the Russell 2000, I told everyone to watch between the 50 and 200 EMAs. And we're going to be watching to see which way we break. Which way did we break? We broke below the red EMA right here, the 200 EMA. So we're looking kind of bearish. Going to be looking for a move back down towards 190. It could drop a little bit more and then try to bounce. Might see a little downside, so be careful. It's looking kind of weak. For Microsoft, we talked about this thing coming down a little bit, then potentially bouncing. It came down, but it didn't get much of a bounce. The bounce was kind of weak, so not the best of signs. If we lose 403.67, we're going to be sinking to 400. If we manage to break above the 20 EMA, if we break above 407, look for a push back up towards 410. So it depends on which way we break. We're still kind of stuck between our 20 and 50 EMA. Be careful, guys. The trend is looking a little bit weaker, but there's still hope it holds up as long as it holds above the 50 EMA. For AMD, we were talking about a pump that was coming and then something else. So what happened was it did pump during the pre-market, but then it dumped after that. So we got the pump, but it happened early on during the day, and then it ended up slowing down and consolidating after that. Now the trend's looking kind of weaker, so we're going to be watching 172. It's basically 171.8 to 50 EMA. If we lose that, we turn more bearish. Otherwise, we just consolidate. So be a little bit careful. It might sink just a little bit and then trade sideways from there. The VIX is still a little indecisive. It's stuck between the 50 and the 200, looking a little bit bearish. Might sink towards 13.5, so watch that very carefully. For the dollar index, we're still kind of indecisive right now. We're kind of uptrending a little bit. Watch and see if we can hold above 104.3. That's going to be very, very important. So just be careful with that. But it's still kind of consolidating. Coinbase is looking a little bit bearish, unfortunately. We got some bad news again. Going to be watching to see if this thing could hold 110. If not, we could be sinking all the way down to the lower 100s. Looking a little bit weaker. We got some bad news, guys. So watch and see if we get this rug pull. For Google, it's looking bullish, but we have to break 146.44. If we break that, it's going to be pushing for 150. If it fails to do so, it might just consolidate, but the trend is still favoring the bulls a little bit more. Amazon looks like it might sink a little bit more. We were talking about this yesterday because it pumps so hard in such a little period of time. We're anticipating some downside and sideways price action, almost exactly what happened. Might sink a little bit more towards 168. So look for a little bit of a retracement before it trades sideways. And for Meta, it might retrace towards, it's actually getting very close to our 20 EMA. This is trending upwards, so it might get very close to like 445 to 450. We could see Meta drop a little bit more before we see some buyers step in to defend it. So be careful with Meta. With that being said, guys, the QQQ is looking a little bit stronger than SPY. We're going to be watching to see if SPY closes above 491 or not tomorrow. There's excuse me, there's still a chance SPY could bounce and push towards 500. We just have to be very patient just to see. Don't forget to watch your levels carefully. Don't forget we have some more economic data coming out for tomorrow at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. And then don't forget that Tesla it's looking kind of weak right now. So just be very careful with the stock, and then we'll have to see how it goes from there. But look and see if we see a little downset in the morning, followed by a little rebound later on during the day, and just be very patient with Tesla. Give it the time it needs. With that being said, guys, thank you all so much for listening. I hope the best for everyone in Tesla. Do not panic. Do not fear. The long term is still very bright for the markets in Tesla. And this short term downside we may be seeing for the next few weeks, next few months, it's going to be completely fine. Don't worry about it because time will fly and we're going to make a full on recovery as we approach the second half of this year. I'm still very bullish on Tesla long term. And I just wanted to let you guys know to just hold on to hope. Don't give up. Do not worry. Okay. Be very calm through this. It's going to be fine. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Have a great night. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Thank you and peace out.